Hey, that's pretty good.
Okay, so I don't think anybody would find it particularly controversial to say that Rick and Morty has probably had the most interesting of evolutions for any sort of adult animated sitcom. Rick and Morty has had fans and general audiences laughing for 13 years now since its first episode way back in 2013. In that time, fans of the show and fans of animation in general have really seen a wide variety of stories come out of the show, as well as of course a wide variety of stories come out of the show's development. And now, for better or for worse, Rick and Morty still hangs around as an animated juggernaut even to this day.
Huh? Oh, come on! You gotta admit this is cool!
Here in 2026, the show continues with Rick and Morty Season 9. Last year, I explained that Rick and Morty Season 8 was great and why. And today? Well, today I'm going to explain why the show is probably the best it's been in years.
Yay!
There's a whole lot to talk about, so let's jump right in.
Big Mike, initiating in 3, 2, 1!
Okay, so jumping right into why this season is probably the best the show's had in years, I want to talk about one thing that is particularly important about this season. And that has to be the fact that I really think that this season, the creatives behind the show have completely weaned themselves off the inspirations that they had for the first few seasons of the show. And what I mean by that is the tone and the type of comedy that the show was especially known for back in the first few seasons. Rick and Morty seasons 1 to 3 were probably the most popular the show had ever been. And back then, the show was of course helmed by Dan Harmon and Justin Roiland. Interestingly, Dan Harmon put out a piece recently where he said that Rick and Morty could continue for more than 100 years, with him saying that the show is designed to run forever. Now, I haven't been able to find anything talking too concretely about just how involved with the show he still is, although I do know that he is working closely with the creatives behind the Rick and Morty movie, which is something I'll talk more about later in this video. So yeah, at least to some extent, Dan Harmon is still involved with Rick and Morty. Justin Roiland, however, thankfully is not.
Yeah! Yeah!
Personally, I was never really on board with Justin Roiland at all.
This is worthless.
Honestly, even outside of Rick and Morty, I always hated Justin Roiland whenever he would appear in basically anything. For me, Justin was someone who had only really one character to play, but still, despite that, wherever he appeared, he played the same character using the exact same voice and always doing the same kind of shtick, which for me was something that got old pretty fast. And honestly, his work with the show was probably something that I never really enjoyed the most about the show. Honestly, a lot of his improv was never particularly funny for me. I know it was funny to a lot of people, but for me it was something that just never worked. I know he was integral to establishing a lot of what the show was, but thankfully, I am just glad that the show is now at a point where Justin's involvement has really been put aside and maybe kind of forgotten, which I honestly think is for the best. And of course, no conversation can be had about Justin Roiland and his involvement with Rick and Morty without of course mentioning his crimes. And honestly, the most I want to say about the subject is that I am just glad that Roiland is gone, because really, he did seem like kind of an asshole. Many people like to talk about Justin's personal life and the crimes he committed in his own home, but really something that I think a lot of people actually forget is that Justin's crimes weren't confined just to his home or his personal life. Because of course, outside of the crimes he committed within his own home and his personal life, there were many accusations of workplace misconduct, which thankfully did lead to Justin's departure from the show. And now I hope that the workplace for the creatives behind Rick and Morty is a genuinely happier place. But anyway, to get back to the point I was making with Rick and Morty Season 9, I am thankful and very happy to say that the show has weaned itself off those initial inspirations for what it was. And honestly, this is something that's been happening for a while now. Really, ever since Justin's departure from the show and the shake-ups with the voice cast, the show itself has been changing and evolving.
Oh yeah, it's all coming together.
The show itself really seemed to be looking to find a new identity. With Dan Harmon taking a step back and Justin Roiland departing the show entirely, the show felt as if it was trying to feel out a way to become something more than what it was. And honestly, I think you can spot this evolution of the show over its previous 3 seasons. as Rick and Morty experimented with new ideas, new types of comedy, and new jokes, whilst also never completely abandoning the tone and type of humour that the show was initially made famous for. Sometimes this worked really well with the episode Fear No Mort, and other times it really didn't, like with the show's infamous monster sperm episode Rick Dependence Day.
What the fuck is this piece of shit?
So yeah, for years now the show has really been experimenting with its tone and its sense of humour. And thankfully here with Season 9, I think you can see the culmination of all the show's efforts, as it really feels as if the show has settled into a new sense of humour and tone, which is something wholly original and completely different from what the show initially was back in its first few seasons. Of course, the show is still Rick and Morty. Every episode still focuses around a Rick and Morty adventure. Aside from the recasting of the voice actors, all the characters are also still the same characters that you would remember. And yes, there's still plenty of sci-fi shenanigans to love and enjoy. It's just that now the show feels more comfortable with itself and the stories it's telling. And as audience members, I think that anybody will be able to recognise this and really enjoy it. Season 9 of Rick and Morty, I think, gives us the most varied set of concepts for any season previously. Of course, Rick and Morty has been a show that's always been about the episodic adventure of one grandfather and his grandson going out on mysterious, wacky sci-fi adventures. However, I do think that some seasons of the show have managed to explore that concept a little better than others, with Rick and Morty probably being one of the better seasons. Of course, last year I said that Rick and Morty Season 8 was particularly great, and I do still believe that. But honestly, having seen Season 9, I do think that this season of the show is slightly better. Like I said earlier in this video, this season of the show has seen the show complete a shift to a new style of comedy and tone, which is one reason why this season of the show is slightly better than last season. But honestly, something that I think that Season 9 still does pretty better than Season 8 would have to be this season's selection of varied episode concepts. I mean, hell, this season they had one episode which was just straight up a game of Spore, and honestly, I loved it. Really, when Dan Harmon says that the show was designed to run forever, I believe him, and it's seasons like this that give me the confidence to say that. This season, it really feels as if the show has explored so many different ideas for new episodes. Of course, we've had those episodes of the show that harken back to previous episodes and follow up on what those episodes established, but beyond that, we've also had an entire selection of new episodes that are wholly original. Some of my favourite episodes have to include Gerbud, A Ricker Runs Through It, Mort Gully The Last Rick Forest, and Salute Your Mort. Honestly, when it comes to my favourite episodes, those episodes are usually the ones that are the most entertaining, the most interesting, or both. And honestly, without spoiling anything, I want to say that this season has been the season that I think has had the best share of episodes that are both interesting and entertaining. Season 8 itself also had a great share of episodes that were both interesting and entertaining, but really I think that Season 9 has really elevated itself beyond it, with a greater share of episodes that are both interesting and entertaining. Now, outside of the creative work behind the show and the episodes themselves, I think I would be remiss to say that the show still looks fantastic. For years now, Rick and Morty has always had a particularly unique look to its aesthetic. It's always been particularly colourful, outlandish, and kinda weird. It's really something that set itself apart from other animated adult sitcoms. And really, I think that that's something that has been one of the biggest attractions for this series. Honestly, I think I'd be lying if I said that a lot of the show's weird visual sci-fi stuff isn't part of the reason why I come back to the show. Seriously, the show is animated super well. A lot of the movements look fast and fluid, and it's clear that the creatives working on the show behind the scenes are putting a lot of effort into making the show. I've always enjoyed Rick and Morty for its animation, and I'm happy to say here that the show continues to look pretty stellar. Something that Season 9 does to set itself apart from its previous seasons, I think would have to be its more action-focused priorities. Really, we got a lot of great animated sci-fi fight scenes in this season, and I have to say that I really enjoyed almost all of them. Each fight scene is fast, fluid, and visually interesting. Something that I particularly enjoyed about the fight scenes from this season would have to of course be their use of cartoon logic. Being cartoons, the characters can essentially do anything, and I think that's great to see. And one last thing I have to say about these fight scenes would have to be their incorporation of different sci-fi gadgets. Like in Rick's fight with Evil Morty, I think there was a particularly good use of different sci-fi gadgets. The gadgets were cool and they were interesting. And yeah, when they weren't either one of those, they were at least funny. So yes, Rick and Morty Season 9 is great. And honestly, I have to say that Season 9 has to be one of the best seasons of the show in years. But hey, at the end of the day, that's just my opinion. Now I know there are some Rick and Morty fans in my audience, so please everybody, leave me a comment in the comment section down below telling me what you thought of this season of the show. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Be sure to let me know. Anyway, if you want to hear me ramble about more shows, please be sure to like and subscribe. Until then, thank you all for watching everybody, and goodbye.